It waits. Just beyond. Beyond the names you give things, beyond the stories that keep you sane. It remains. While we invent meaning, it watches. While we pray, it watches. No cruelty or curiosity. It simply observes. We search for shape, for logic, for mercy. The terror begins when we realize the thing we've seen was never looking at us in the first place. We don't matter. We never did. If you too never mattered, check out Pantheon, our brand inspired by myths, legends and folklore we ship worldwide and are rated excellent on Trustpilot. Link in the description. It's a genre built around one core idea. Human beings are not central to the universe. We are temporary, fragile, and irrelevant in the faces of forces too vast to understand. Traditional horror relies on danger. Cosmic horror relies on insignificance. It's about being ignored. Worth is a human concept, and the universe does not participate in our value system. The genre was shaped by H.P. Lovecraft, whose fiction reflects a materialist, mechanistic view of reality. In his cosmology, there is only time, entropy, and entities so far beyond our scale that even recognizing them can fracture the mind. Lovecraft's entities are not villains. They don't seek conquest or revenge. They do not punish or reward. They are indifferent, and that is precisely why they are terrifying. Cosmic horror draws its power from what happens when human perception fails. When a person encounters a truth so alien, so vast, so contrary to their expectations, that the brain can no longer structure reality around it. It is the psychological collapse that comes when meaning disappears because it was never there to begin with. Knowledge is the real threat, the realization that your beliefs, your categories, your sense of self cannot survive what you've seen. The horror, it's existential. It affects how you know what you know and forces you to question whether knowing is even possible. Cosmic horror asks one question. What if the universe operates according to principles we will never be able to understand, and it simply doesn't matter that we try? The answer is silent, and that silence is where the fear begins. Human consciousness is structured to find order, obsessively. We interpret the world through a constant automatic process of pattern recognition and meaning attribution. When we see two events close together, we assume a cause. When something happens without explanation, we invent one. We see faces in clouds, omens in accidents, gods in storms. It's cognition. Our brains are prediction machines. They survive by reducing uncertainty, by turning noise into signal. And to do this, we impose structure, categories, causal chains, narratives. It's how we hold the world together. Cosmic horror strips that scaffolding away. It's necessity. It's what allows us to wake up in the morning, move through space, make decisions, and believe that what we're doing matters. It introduces the unknowable. The suggestion that knowledge may have limits, that the structures we use to make sense of reality, language, morality, logic, time, cause and effect might not apply beyond a certain threshold. The horror comes from seeing something the mind cannot categorize, and watching your psychological structure begin to fracture under the weight of it. The universe of cosmic horror is indifferent. It doesn't play by rules, notice what we're watching, or care that we're afraid, and that is precisely what makes it corrosive. We are conditioned to believe that things happen for reasons, that suffering has meaning, that knowledge brings clarity. Cosmic horror offers none of that. It replaces meaning with scale, narrative with randomness, and comfort with silence. When people in these stories encounter cosmic entities, whether it's Cthulhu rising from the deep, Yog-Sothoth pressing in from all sides, or Azathoth seething at the center of everything, they're encountering a category error. These beings don't belong inside any mental model we've built. They don't reflect our values, our biology, or our expectations. When the mind tries to make sense of them, it fails. The brain was never meant for this kind of input. This is where the madness comes from trying to contain a thing that resists containment, from realizing that everything you believe is local, limited, just irrelevant. That's the human problem. It's not the monster that breaks you. It's the absence of meaning that follows in its wake. Curiosity. It killed the cat, you know. Us, humans, we made it sacred. We built a civilization on it. Curiosity is treated as a virtue, a signal of intelligence, independence, ambition. It has taken us to the bottom of the ocean and to the edge of space. We study, we decode, we reach. We assume that truth, once uncovered, will yield something useful. That understanding leads to safety, mastery, perhaps even transcendence. It is foundational to science, philosophy, and myth. The idea that to seek is to grow. Cosmic horror begins on the same premise. Then it turns inside out. Curiosity often marks the beginning of structural failure. The pursuit itself remains rational. A pattern appears, a signal repeats, a dream lingers. We investigate because we are wired to resolve uncertainty. We believe the universe will reward inquiry with clarity, that if a pattern emerges, it can be deciphered. This belief conceals a deeper issue. Human cognition operates within fixed boundaries. We process the world through systems shaped by sequence, causality, perspective, and shared context. We expect reality to align with those structures. Cosmic horror introduces material that falls outside of them. The mind, faced with input it cannot translate, begins to distort. The effort to interpret continues. The symbols seem readable. The book invites translation. The dream appears to follow logic. The mind stretches its metaphors, adjusts its frameworks, reorganizes its beliefs to make room for what's arriving. Eventually, the structure gives way. The kind of knowledge central to cosmic horror brings contradictions that dissolve internal order. It bypasses familiar concepts and engages directly with the limits of comprehension. Rather than confirm or challenge existing models, it dissolves the scaffolding they rely on. Time, identity, and selfhood lose coherence. The Necromonicon contains knowledge older than language, older than thought. It reveals truths that strip away the framework of ordinary consciousness. Those who engage with it are exposed, enlightened, disassembled. Language depends on the stability of meaning. Words point toward concepts, names, values, locations. But once internal coherence dissolves, words lose their grip. They continue, but no longer describe. The speaker may reach for explanation, but the reference points that once anchored the meaning have faded. The mind searches for fragments, familiar shapes, known symbols, pieces that feel intact. Obsession becomes a form of orientation, a way to stay tethered. For some, surrender offers greater relief. Joining the cult, yielding to the vision, accepting the authority of something larger removes the pressure to interpret. Submission replaces explanation. In some cases, the self attempts reconstruction, from the ground up. But without shared context or reliable sense of time, space, and identity, each thought collapses into the next. The new structure cannot stabilize. This is the breaking point, the moment understanding arrives. Cosmic horror reframes the pursuit of knowledge. It reveals that truth may exceed the systems built to receive it. Some revelations preserve nothing, and beyond that threshold, no coherent self remains. Time gives shape to reality. It offers beginning, middle, end. It creates arcs, allows closure. Without it, cause and effect dissolve. Identity falters. Memory becomes unreliable. The self begins to slide. We live in sequence, and without sequence, there is no orientation. Cosmic horror erodes this. It introduces entities that don't move through time, but exist around it, outside it, as if it were a diagram rather than a river. Yog-Sothoth is the clearest of these violations. It is described as a being that is time itself, all time, compressed into a presence. It sees all moments simultaneously, past, present, future, collapsed into a singular totality. The human mind, which survives by drawing lines between moments, cannot grasp this. Yog-Sothoth is always already there. To glimpse it is to be untethered, to lose all concept of before and after. Those who came too close, they lose chronology. Their lives disintegrate into fragmented loops, disordered flashbacks, recursive hallucinations. They scatter. Azathoth represents a different kind of temporal horror. It sits at the center of the universe, blind, idiot, eternal. A problem. Azathoth merely is, and always has been. To imagine it is to confront duration without purpose. To imagine being it is worse. A mindless continuity. The stasis of a God that never ends. Its endless torment. Time becomes a weight, a crushing circular pulse. And then there are the species that came before us. The great race of Yith, for example, survived by leaping across eons, transferring their consciousness from one host to another across vast stretches of time. Their cities sit in the deep past, waiting to rise again. For them, centuries are seconds. Humanity is not even a phase, just a flicker in the dark. These species render out our entire history as an afterthought. The ruins were already ancient when our ancestors crawled from the mud. They will outlast us by geological ages. Their existence reminds us that time does not end with us. This is the core of temporal horror, overwhelming duration. Time as something vast enough to erase all sense of relevance. Cosmic horror confronts us with entities that are always, that have no beginning or end. They are the environment time moves through. This stretches the mind to breaking. Events lose order. Consciousness searches for footing and finds only scale. What's left is eternity, the terror of existing in a moment that never passes, or worse, being noticed by something that's always been watching. Space is mute. It never made a sound to begin with. Just distance. And that distance is the monster. In cosmic horror, space is the threat. Vastness becomes hostile by sheer scale. The further you go, the less familiar the world becomes. Laws begin to break down. Time distorts. Direction becomes meaningless. There is no center to return to, no boundary to reach. Only more of the same. Expansion without shape. Movement without progress. It's not the cold that kills. It's the absence of pattern. We need orientation, up and down, here and there, past and future. But space stretches those until they snap. When you stare into the void long enough, you begin to understand that it's not waiting for you. It's not even aware you're looking. You could travel forever and never find another mind. The cosmos is occupied by entities that thrive in the gaps, beings that cross unimaginable distances without vessels, without effort, because the emptiness belongs to them. Nyarlathotep moves between stars as easily as thoughts pass between neurons. Azathoth pulses the center of everything in a non-location, unreachable by travel because it lies outside geography. For them, space is a medium. Where we see isolation, they see access. The fear of space is the fear of infinite exposure. That nothing will hear you scream is less terrifying than the thought that something might, and it will be ancient, and it will be alien, and it will not care. This is the abyss reframed as a condition of reality. Distance becomes predatory. Emptiness becomes intelligent. The universe becomes a machine with no center and no purpose, only process. And somewhere in its recursive coils, something is awake. Something that does not move because it does not need to. It is already there, at every point, in every gap, between every atom of the void. In space, insignificance becomes infinite. You are not just small. You are unlocatable. You are nowhere. And that is where the fear lives, in being lost, forever, in a place that never ends. The fear was once fictional. Now it feels familiar. Cosmic horror was never meant to be prophetic, but as our knowledge grows, so too does our resemblance to the terrified protagonists who lose their mind in ancient texts and forgotten tombs. The universe is expanding. Our instruments reach further than our ancestors could dream. The Webb telescope shows us stars that died before our species began. Quantum physics dismantles cause and effect. Multiverse theory mocks the idea of a single truth. Every new answer fractures the frame. There is more than we thought. Always more. Scale is no longer a distant problem. It's intimate now. We carry it in our pockets. You can scroll through extinction events, black hole collisions, and forgotten civilizations between breakfast and bed. We are aware, constantly, of how little we are. This awareness builds a pressure that doesn't release. Cosmic horror used to ask, what if? Now it asks, how long can you keep pretending you don't know? Science has removed the comfort of boundaries. There is no center, no up, no down, just relative coordinates in a system too vast to map. The Copernican insult that we are not the center of anything has been followed by countless others. Our planet is fragile. Our atmosphere is thin. Our species is brief. Our understanding is local. Our value is imaginary. This is measurement. And technology, rather than anchoring us, accelerates the drift. Every advance brings new contradictions. Artificial intelligence writes code it cannot explain. Neural networks recognize faces in chaos. Algorithms filter meaning from noise, and yet we still feel lost. We once believed knowledge would bring clarity. Now it brings contradiction, ambiguity, doubt. We've reached the age of cognitive overload. Information moves faster than comprehension. Attention is fragmented. Consensus is broken. Language itself begins to splinter under the weight of relentless novelty. There is no shared story anymore, only signals, data, and the desperate search for context. Certainty collapses. The frameworks we inherited, religion, tradition, progress, are no longer stable. We question institutions, we question perception, we question the self. And we are right to. But in doing so, we remove the last protections we had from the void. This is where cosmic horror lives. In the silence that remains, once belief evaporates. We are no longer the confident explorers of a rational universe. We are echoes trying to orient ourselves inside a storm. Cosmic horror feels more real every year because the world now operates at a scale beyond the mind's design. We can measure everything, but we understand nothing, and beneath it all, there is a quiet, growing suspicion that we were never meant to know. The knowledge is not hidden. It just doesn't care whether we find it. It ends like this. The fear was never the monster. The tentacles, the teeth, the madness, they were symptoms, distractions. The real horror waits underneath, quiet and absolute. You will die, that much you accept. But so will your species, your planet, your star, every word you've ever spoken, every book, every song, every name. There will be no witnesses. The last human thought will dissolve into radiation. The last trace of life will fall silent. Somewhere between the collapse of one galaxy and the collision of another, the universe will go on. Cosmic horror is the fear that nothing ever was, that you were never seen, never known, never needed.